It seems there is absolutely no way in this world that The Acolyte is going to receive a season 2. Now, stranger things have happened, and yes, that's a more popular series on Netflix, joke intended. But for Disney to actually greenlight The Acolyte season 2, and by the way, cause Star Wars fans to say, please, we beg of you, no, they would have to go in full opposition to the market. There is no audience for The Acolyte. Today we'll show you why things are not all right at Lucasfilm. Hello folks, we are having a dandy of a day right here, streaming to you from somewhere sunny USA. The studio is bright, and the topic is clear. Today we are talking about Star Wars, its depraved state. Reprehensible, I would even say. And folks, we're talking about, by the way, that there's no way that Disney could possibly be considering a season 2. Surely there is no way. Even despite all the loose ends, no one wants this story to continue. Literally, no one. If you see someone online saying that they want this to go on, that they're interested in the shipping of the show, they're almost certainly a bot. And I don't normally say that, but this show is atrocious. Let's dive in with the panel right now. Paul Tassi, why The Acolyte Season 2 looks increasingly unlikely. Now, for those of you out there who don't know, Paul has been pushing The Acolyte like he is Sisyphus pushing that boulder up a hill. He was never going to give it up, but finally, he has fallen. He has cratered. Down the mount he goes, and here's what Paul has to say. Folks, get ready for mental gymnastics, the likes of which should make you envious. Well, not in a good way. Here we go. Paul Tassi says, get ready. We'll explain why it won't get a season 2. You won't believe it. The Acolyte has quickly become one of the most controversial Disney Plus Star Wars projects in the entire era. Right up there with The Last Jedi, but all the hate and or support aside, there is a simple question. Will The Acolyte get a season 2? Ever since the last few excellent episodes, I have gone from mixed on the show to a supporter. He was convinced, Lauren, you know, when we were laughing out loud, when we were guffawing, when tears were running from our eyes at the stupidity of it all, he was being impressed by it. And no matter what happens in the finale, I'd like to see it continue. But I have to admit that seems exceedingly unlikely based on what we know. Now, hold on, folks. You're going to love the mental gymnastics. I'm telling you, get ready for it. No. It's not about the show being woke or it being bashed by Star Wars YouTubers and their audiences. Rather, it's pretty simple. Cost versus viewership. So, folks, let me distill this. It's not because it's woke, which probably drove away the audience. It's not because Star Wars YouTubers and their audiences represent the majority and they're not watching, they're mocking it because it's bad. It's because of viewership. So if we here, the WDW Pro Channel, if we and places like X-Wing and places like Culture Casino and all the other channels out there, Echo-Based Network and Star Wars Theory, if we say this show has terrible viewership in a YouTube video, we have no idea what we're talking about. You have to go to Forbes to read Paul Tassi say it. Guys, before I go any further, help me make sense of this conundrum of mental lapsing. What is this?
No, I would agree with them in as much as I could ever agree with Paul Tassi, who seems to have the most smooth brain approach to everything ever, all the time. Why he writes for a financial magazine, I have no clue. But yeah, it costs far too much for the YouTubers that are watching it to make content, because that's all it is. The entire audience, by the time we get through the finale on Tuesday, that you will come back here to watch the after party for. By the time you get through that episode, there will be less than half the number of people that started watching this. This is going to be the kind of epic fail that Doctor Who was this season. This is terrible. And look, if it's $180 million to get less than 3% of your audience to show up, you are not doing a good job. You are not serving your customers with this show. You know, and outside of saying some very colorful words, I'll just say this show deserves no further effort by anyone ever. In fact, I would venture to say no one should be putting money towards Star Wars for at least a decade.
Culture, you're too harsh. Okay. I, for one, am proud of Paul Tassi for discovering what we've been talking about for 1 month before he ever put it to words, and then took credit for it, and then claimed we never said it. Oh, and by the way, we have no leg to stand upon. X-Wing, what are you adding to the background here? What is this, X-Wing, in the back channels that I see that you're ready to show? What are you wanting up on the screen?
Just a still shot from the show. And I have to give credit to Grand Moff Rispin for this. Not even this guy could find the budget. As hard as he tried, he looked everywhere and simply could not find
it. Nor could he find an audience. How sad. How sad indeed.
X-Wing, do you own one of those?
A metal detector?
Yeah.
No.
Are you sure? Because I
think it's a tomato detector.
I figured you'd be one of those kinds of guys that would, go around searching for potatoes or something with a metal detector.
No. That doesn't quite make sense. But it makes more sense than the show. That's what I'll tell you right off the bat.
Could you find a Virgins with a metal detector?
He was looking for it.
Easy on the pronunciation there. We've been down that road before.
Hey, Wookie, grab the metal detector. See if you can find the Virgins. Meanwhile, they're gathering Carrie Ann Moss. They're gathering Carrie Ann Moss and putting it in their lunch boxes. This is incredible. It's beautiful, and I love watching people try to justify it. It brings me life.
Well, let's continue on in that track then. Estimates of the cost of the Acolyte put it at $180 million for what were effectively 8 30-minute episodes. That's an absolutely wild amount of money for a Star Wars thing that is nowhere near theaters, but rather the 6th Disney live-action Star Wars series instead. And while I think the show has a solid aesthetic, oh yes, those Hobby Lobby ferns are impressive. No, it does not look like a $180 million production, and you have to wonder where much of that money went. Well, it went to Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant. Then there's viewership, which is what we've been reporting on, but we don't know what we're talking about because, well, Paul Tassi is the new Scott Mendelson. Where if it was a breakout smash hit, it might be worth spending that for another season. But it's just not there based on what we know. Disney does not give out official numbers, but Nielsen says its premiere was half the viewership of Ahsoka and 75% lower than The Mandalorian. And folks, as we've said before, The Mandalorian increased in season 2. Its viewership, the finale was the most viewed. It looks to us very much like The Acolyte is the opposite. Its viewership is dwindling. That means that by the time we get to the end, it's going to have something like 90 to 95% of a drop-off versus Mandalorian season 2. Before you say, well, it's just so bad, that's why viewership is low, you should know the least watched show is Andor, universally praised as one of the best things in Star Wars history, even past the Disney era. It did, in fact, get a season 2, however, on a reported $250 million budget. Lauren, I want you to address this because this is the only part of Paul Tassi's argument that has any cogency to it. So, Lauren, what do you make of this claim that we should put out the possibility of an Acolyte season 2 because Andor got one and nobody watched Andor, but Andor was good, and so somehow that means the Acolyte's good too?
Well, Andor was good, but I think that part of this is, I think the reason that it's got a season 2 is that was kind of baked into the cake with Andor to start with. Originally, I believe the plan was that it was going to be 5 seasons, but they shortened it to 2. What they're doing instead is each episode of the second season is going to be a 1-year arc. So they're going to have basically 2 episodes will make up 1 year, and they'll make up the 5-year period that way.
So let's say that again, Lauren. Because of the low viewership, it went from a 5-season to a 2-season.
I guess that may be part of it. I think it's also that Tony Gilroy didn't want to be nailed down for that entire time. But whatever the cause behind the scenes, I think there's also probably a little bit of cost savings because I imagine some of the sets and props and everything else that were used in season 1 will be reusable in season 2. They're not using the volume in Andor like they did in most of their other shows. Now, I believe that you'd have to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think the Acolyte is also more practical than a lot of the other ones have been.
Yes.
Correct.
And that probably accounts for some of the budget as well. But the difference, I think, is that in Andor, you can see where the money went.
Right.
New wardrobe and Leslie.
Yeah.
Oh, and a lot of green makeup. A lot of green makeup. And we have come to the end. Let the credits crawl. But folks, please, you do not crawl over to the like button. Share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, we want to thank you heartily and mightily for your support of Vacation Radio. Here on YouTube, just type in @Vacation Radio, 24/7, 365 music brought to you by WDW Pro and our friends such as Ron at Follow the Bradley's Fun and Stuttering Guitarist. This is our first step in giving you original content creation. And folks, it's a joy to do so. All right, until the next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.